Hey there, B group. This is Wednesday, September 9th. Yesterday in school, you did the joint stock company where you invested money in a colony. And well, we probably found out that colonies start off a little slow at first, but they get better and better, and things, typically become okay. We also know from last week that as the colonies here in America, the British colonies, become more successful, well, they have conflict with the French. We fight the French and Indian War. The British, the colonies, and their Indian friends win the war, and that leads to the French just leaving North America for good. They're no longer interested in having colonies here, and that opens up a lot of new opportunities for the British. But it's not all perfect. When there are new opportunities for the British, great, British colonies begin to be more successful. They kind of enjoy being their own independent thing. But the British government is going to think, all right, colonies, we fought a very expensive French and Indian war for you over a 9-year period. Now you're going to help pay for that war. Well, you'll see there's a series of back and forth problems between the Americans and the British because the Americans aren't really interested in paying for that war by themselves like they feel the British government wants them to. So in class yesterday, you picked up a timeline of events that are going to lead us to the American Revolution. And for today, you're going to work on defining those first several of those items that are going to lead us to the war. This is the paper I'm talking about. On the front side of the page, we did joint stock company yesterday. And now on this side of the page, you're going to start working on defining some problems between the British and the colonies. So I'm going to have you start with the Proclamation of 1763. You're going to get a definition for that, the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Quartering Act, the Daughters of Liberty, the Townshend Acts, and the non-importation agreements. Now, one place you can find many of those is in Quizlet. The Quizlet I have a link to later on in this lesson will define a bunch of those things for you. So we're doing a little bit of old school here. We're putting a definition on paper. Some of these events going back and forth between the British, who are trying to make the Americans pay for some of the French and Indian War, and the Americans who don't really want to do that. We're kind of getting frustrated that we don't have anybody in Parliament who can represent us. We don't like being taxed without representation. That phrase, no taxation without representation, is a pretty big deal in American history. In fact, such a big deal, Washington, D.C. still has that phrase on their license plates. So you're working on identifying some of these events that are leading us to the Revolutionary War. So you work through the items on the lesson for today, and when you come back to class on Thursday, we're going to have all this frustration boil over into violence, and that's going to be the story of the Boston Massacre. All right, we'll see you then.